Hey, it's Chris, and today I wanted to talk to you about a question that I get a lot. And that is, what are my odds of getting music into TV and film? So, the statistics of the people who don't, and the statistics of the people who do. Well, if you did the math and you just added up everybody who gets their music into TV and film versus everybody who doesn't, I don't know what the figure is exactly, but I'm guessing it's probably 5% of the people succeed, 95% of the people fail. So then you may say, well, Chris, why would I even try to do something like that? Well, think about it this way. So when you went to school, in the front of your class sat the keeners, right? And in the back of the class, the slackers. And then a bunch of us in the middle. I was kind of a middle back kid myself. Now, the people in the front probably had a much, much greater chance of getting straight A's and, at the very least passing the course, right? And the people in the back, not so much. And the people in the middle, predictably, were in the middle of the bell curve. So what does that say about statistics? You wouldn't just literally look at the classroom and say, well, here's a statistic and of, the person, your odds of passing this class are this. No, it comes down to the individual. It comes down to you. So if you're licensing your music and you're trying to get it into TV and film, and you know what you're doing, right? That's critical. You have to know how to produce it properly, write it properly, give them what they're looking for, when they're looking for it, pitching it correctly, all that stuff. So if you've got that though, the next piece of the puzzle is you. You're the one who determines your fate. Now you could say, well, Chris, wait a minute. It's about kind of who you know, or it's, just different variables, right? Somebody might get a big break or whatever it is. But the thing is, that only affects the time frame. It only affects when it happens and not if it will happen, because you'll eventually get there, right? Even if someone gets a shortcut, they know somebody or whatever, if you're that kind of person who knows what you're doing and then understands that you have to be persistent at what you're doing, things will start to happen for you. So on our staycation, we actually saw this really cool film at the Natural History Museum, and it was on predators. And it turns out that a leopard, every time a leopard hunts, its chances of catching prey is 1 in 7, 1 in 6, 1 in 7, somewhere in there. And then the same thing with a polar bear, but the polar bear's odds are even worse, especially in the spring. That was like 1 in 20. So that was the odds of it catching its prey. So first off, let's look at that statistic and say, well, okay, so is every leopard going to have that 1 in 6 and 1 in 7 chance of catching their prey? No. Natural selection says the ones that are quicker, faster, smarter are going to have much better odds. The ones that don't are going to have worse odds and starve to death, right? But the thing is that regardless of that, it's amazing how an animal can be so persistent and keep trying time after time after time when the vast majority of the times that they're going to try it, they're going to fail. But the thing is, it's that one time that they get it that makes all the difference. You forget about everything else. You forget about the failures. It just happens for you, right? And that's really, really important to remember. And one of the techniques that I use to sort of get myself through those failures in life, because we all have them, and one of the things that I use are things like organizational tools or ways to keep myself on a ladder, that pulls me sort of out of the hole, right? If I fall into it. So here's a quick little story. When we got back from the staycation, it turns out somebody backed into our boat. And at first I was super worried about it because I thought it's structural damage. It's going to be this horrible scene. Turns out it was mostly superficial, but nonetheless, nothing you want to come home to. Then we also came home to something that broke on the boat when we were gone. So that had to be fixed. Then I opened my computer and I had this huge, massive to-do list of all this stuff that had piled up while I was on vacation. Well, I had this moment of complete overwhelm. I felt like, oh man, really the world is working against me. It's just like I can't understand why me, why my boat. There's a bunch of boats here, and you get into that mode of thinking, right? Well, that only lasted for a second or two. I wallowed in self-pity, and I just, felt sorry for myself. Then I quickly remembered it's not about the world, it's about me. So the world doesn't change. The world is this thing that is always dishing out the same stuff for everybody all the time. And the only difference is it's your perception of it. It's how you perceive the world that's different. So what I found is that these organizational tools that I have, like I use these different things, for example, in my business and so on, I use this thing called Aptivo, which is a CRM, which structures everything properly. I can keep track of it and I have control of it, and I can do things step by step by step. So if suddenly there's something that gets thrown into the gears, no problem. I can go into this organizational tool that's all structured and I can see where the problem happened and I can circumvent it. It doesn't come in as a feeling. It doesn't come in as this emotional world against me thing, which is incapacitating, right? It happens to all of us. You just want to run away from it. Sometimes you feel like things just aren't going your way. And the other beautiful thing about being organized and having everything sort of set up in a timeline, and this circles back to music licensing in 1 second here. So the beautiful thing about these organizational tools is they also break the world into these manageable parts. So you can actually move them around. You want the world to flow around you like a river, where you can move the pieces around how you want them to move. Of course, they don't always move the way you want them to move. But what you don't want to have happen is be stuck in, say, quicksand. You don't want the world to be, your relationship to the world, to be like you in quicksand, where you can't manipulate the world. You can't do anything with it. It's doing things to you. And that was one thing that I've definitely found about, keeping these things sort of ordered and so on, that really helped that. Now, when you're licensing your music, after you've put all the pieces together, which we dive deep into, of course, in the Art of the Song Pitch, and show everybody exactly how to do it and do it properly, working smarter, not harder. After that, it's about keeping yourself oriented and aligned with what you're trying to do and making sure the world stays in these discrete pieces that you can keep moving around and keep building it towards something that you want. And so when you're, for example, setting your music out, you know how to follow up, you know what to do, you know the next step. And by having that control, you're like that predator. You fail, no big deal, because if you keep trying, you're just going to get it, right? Eventually it's going to come. And so remember that when you're doing that, use organizational tools to try to move yourself forward and make these things happen. And I truly believe it's going to serve you very well. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.